Hey guys, just wanted to thank you guys for all your submissions and joining in my really short but hopefully fun feedback, Flourish feedback challenge that I hosted on Instagram. This is the piece that I'm going to be working through together with you guys just to share some of the things that I look for, as well as some tips, some tweaks that we can make when it comes to flourishing words. And so we're going to look at the first word up here. The first version is this part. And so before we even start with the flourishing, the first thing I usually do is just to make sure everything's at the right X height. You have consistent slants as well as the spacing between the letters. Then I look for just different areas of flourishing. And so usually I'll look at the capital letter, we'll look at some ascending stem loop options as well as descending stem loops and the end flourishes. And so for this particular word, this descending stem loop letter G is also functioning as end letter. And so you'll see that this submission has 3 different ways that they flourish the G. But going back to this one up here, for this capital letter, I noticed that there is a bit of a disconnect with the top of this capital with the main body. And so I'm not sure if the purpose was to try to do like a lowercase letter maybe and then doing with a capital. But if you know copperplate letter for F, you actually don't need this comma dot here. You can just start it off with, let's see if this is going to work. Okay, you can just start off with just a thin to thick. Okay, so we can get rid of this comma dot here just to have a more of a unified look to this capital letter. I love this even spacing between the main shade and then this loop here. The ending, I would suggest either you end it with a nice curve. I always share how when you envision the end stroke, you can envision, picture this small oval even at the end of each stroke. That kind of helps you to make sure you end it with a nice curved stroke. If not, you can always continue that and bring it back in to here as well. Okay, then you have this part up here. Okay, so we're going to get rid of this. So this should connect very nicely in here. But one thing I do notice is that the lines for this top part of this F as well as this L is very close together. Okay, and so this is another example of a hot spot where my eye is going to be drawn to a lot of lines that are coming together. And so one thing I would suggest is either if you want to keep this loop pretty simple, then I would just make sure that this top part of this F is going to go right through that L. Like that. That way you can actually use the top part of that F to flourish out more, extend that stroke out, and also you instead of having the 2 lines so close to each other, you can actually intersect it, which actually makes the whole like white balance and the spacing around this word to be more open. And so that can be an option if you wanted to keep this pretty standard loop. Then we have this loop coming down this way, which is fine. You do want to make sure that with this part here with the F, you can, if you wanted to, instead of putting it down from the L, you can, an option would be to actually pull this down underneath the baseline. So if you rather wanted to use this part of the F, you can actually do it like that and then not use this L, just different options. And in that case, you would just keep this L, very simple. Okay, then moving on here, because we extended out this F that kind of covered this area to the left of this H, then you have the H this flourish is looking good. And then the G came up around to the top, and that's fine. If you wanted to add a flourish to the bottom here, because there is a lot of space down here, again, you don't have to flourish every single white space that you have, but just to show you guys some options of what it might look like. You have two different letters that you can work with. You can do either the R or the S. So if you do it off the R, it's going to come down, and you can add a loop. You can just kind of leave it open like that, or we can do a figure 8. Or even a tail. Okay, but the reason why I would do it off of the R and not the S is because the S is a little bit closer to this G. And so if we were to flourish off the S and make that flourish big, it would kind of, it would intersect with that G loop. And so the R just gives it a little bit more room to work with bigger flourishes for the bottom, which is why if I had to choose between these two, I would probably choose the R. Okay, so moving down to the second one here. So definitely this F looks a lot cleaner than the one up here because we got rid of that. This one doesn't have that comma dot. Let's see. So here we have two similar flourishes. Usually I try to make flourishes differently so that it adds a bit of a interest to the word. And so if we were to choose a different flourish, you can actually alternate. You can try to work with this L over here. Okay, so it's same thing here though. What we talked about, instead of curving this top part of this F above this L, I would actually just bring it in through. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. If you just kind of lower that and bring it in here. Then this L, you can also extend it up higher. Let's see, if we do it higher up here, come down, can end it here, only because if I wanted to flourish it out again, it's just too many lines that are competing with each other. Okay, so let's see what happens if we keep this first L simple. Okay, we can even, if we wanted to add more of flourish on this side of this capital letter, you can extend out this loop. Do it a little bit higher. Okay, you're gonna add a stroke that extends out the F a little bit more. Okay, we're gonna keep this L a little bit more simple. Again, you have a lot of space down here. This F, if you want to use this, is totally fine. I would probably add a entrance stroke for this L just to kind of put in a stroke in this white space here. And then down here again with the R, I think it would be a great place to add a little bit of a flourish here. You can even leave it open like that. Or if we didn't want to use it off the R, we can also flourish off of this G and bring that G flourish to cover in this way. So let's see what that looks like. So if we didn't do the R, since we did the R example on the first version, let's see what happens if we did this G. Keep this. I would probably continue the stroke back around on the outside. So this would be considered an inner loop. Okay, bring it back out. And then because I want to extend out the flourish to the left, okay, we can do it like that, just to cover a little bit of space here. So what I did was I added this, I continued the stroke here, spiraling inside, maintaining even spacing right here, adding the inner loop, brought it outside to the right of that G, and then I intersected it, keeping all of this hairline, intersected it through all of these loops, and then I'm creating another loop down here. Okay, now we have this H. Because we kept this L simple, we can do a little bit more here. So if we wanted to extend it out, we can just extend it out that way. So this flourish actually helps with, it's nice because you can actually cover the left side of that letter as well as the right side. Okay, so what we did was we're going to go up, down, to the left, and then loop it back around to the right. Okay, so we can do this one to cover both of the small space we had to the left and the right of that H. Okay, another thing I did want to point out was with this G, it's a little bit confusing what letter this is, because this particular stroke right here is very similar to the copperplate Z. Okay, so if you know copperplate Z, I'm just gonna turn this paper like this just to show you guys. Usually for the copperplate Z, we go up, make a loop, come down, another loop, and then we have the descending stem loop. Okay, so if you look at those letters, this one and this one, they look very similar. Okay, so it looks a little bit confusing, like it looks like I'm saying flourishings. And so in order to not confuse this letter with the copperplate Z, and you want to make sure that people know it's a G, I wouldn't add this loop down here. Okay, so, but if you wanted to do something a little bit just unique than the regular copperplate G, you can always just, what I like to do is keep that oval on top, but you can just start from down here. Kind of add a little wavy line, and then you can do the same Z that we did before, where you looped it like that. Okay, you can even add a little bit of a tick mark on top. Okay, so that still looks like a G versus a Z. Okay, so that would be something I would kind of adjust here. Okay, so if I wanted to just bring this down here and get rid of this side, we can start from down here and then come back out. Okay, lastly, the last version here, something I'm noticing is that there's a lot of lines here. It looks a little bit cramped. And what I usually try to do is when I'm doing this part, flourish part to the left of the stem, I like to actually lift up this second spiral up higher. It kind of opens it up, and also to open up this spacing between the first spiral and then the main shade. It's a little bit tight. Okay, so if we were to do it again, if I were to make it higher, I'll try with the pencil first, keeping the shade go up higher, leave a little bit more room. Okay, it's a little hard to see with that. Grab a thicker pen here. Okay, so come up around. We're going to do higher this time, but then when you come down this way, we're going to lift part of that stroke and make it into a more of a horizontal oval. Okay, so you have a vertical oval and then you have that horizontal oval. Okay, that kind of makes the letter a little bit more lighter and up higher. Okay, so even with this part, the top part of this F, you just want to watch out that it's not too close. Okay, so that you have a little bit of a room. Okay, this is much better, and this one too is a little bit tight right here. So I would just make sure with these, and you can always extend that out too. Okay, same thing. So here too, you see how like the line, I think you're trying to avoid this loop for this L, and so what happened was we created this hot spot. So you just want to make sure you're either gonna intersect that line, or another way I like to combine this letters like T to H or T to like another letter with a loop like a L, is you can actually combine it by going straight and then go right into the L. So F goes right into the L, so that there is a more of like that very smooth transition. Okay, so we're gonna keep all this the same, and then this H looks good. If anything, if you want to just extend it a little bit more, you can always just make your ovals a little bit bigger. Just because you have no other competing strokes. Okay, you can always make adjustments just to fill up that space. And then with this G, kept it a very open, which is fine. I love like this oval shape here. Okay, maintaining that oval. And then if you wanted to add something here, let's see, maybe if we were to go back here, maybe we could have even extended this second part down below the baseline. Maybe this could have even come down this way, just to have a little bit of a stroke to balance off the right side of this word. This would be something that could be a possibility that you guys can try. So I hope this has been helpful. So just to recap what we talked about how watching the strokes not being so close to each other. We talked about just making sure that instead of having the lines come together like this to create a hot spot, we decided to intersect the line just to create a more open look. And then we talked about flourishing off of letters that are not, that don't have any ascending or descending stem loops, because depending on where that letter is and the placement, it can really add a great flourish to that word, especially because we didn't do such a crazy flourish for that G. And again, even with this one, just like we did for the third one, you can always make the loops, the ovals a tad bigger, just to fill up some space. Okay, for the second one, same thing. We extended out this top of this F so that it goes through the loop of the L instead of coming right up against it. We can even make this loop of this L a little bit higher and make it more simple. Okay, you can always extend out your strokes for the top of the F here. And then we added in the entrance stroke for this L just to cover some of that white space. And then for this G, we talked about how just being careful that it didn't look like the copper plate Z. So you would just start the stroke down here instead. You can add a flick, start the stroke down here, continue on this stroke for this inner loop, and then we can bring it back around to the left of this word, just because there's so much space over here. And then we can extend out this H more and use this flourish where you can do both left and the right side of that H. Okay, so I hope this was helpful for you guys. If you guys are interested, my Flourishing online class is still open for registration, but I will be closing it this Friday. So make sure to sign up before Friday, 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. Okay, thank you guys. Bye.